Richardson up ahead, look out, hello, Amari Stoudemire elevates and detonates.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Suns Suns Planet, and we are back here. Doing a pod. It's been an eventful past week, Bruce. So many good things happened in terms of the team structure and all of that. It's just gonna get better, right? It's not wrong to be optimistic or anything like that, right? With everything that's been going on. But yeah, we're gonna talk about it a lot today. I'm Kevin. Yeah, my main man, Bruce, is here. And if you notice, we're man short today. Fallen founder couldn't get his internet straight, but he'll be joining us. We're hopeful within the show. But Bruce, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Kev. Once again, great to talk Suns with you and hopefully with Jake if he can get his internet figured out here and get into StreamYard as well. Because there's been some great things that have been happening with the Phoenix Suns, like you said. It's definitely not a bad feeling if you're feeling a little bit optimistic going into the off season here with these next couple of days being enticing with free agency and maybe some other moves out there for the Suns. We did see a trade go down in the NBA world this morning. And that wasn't the Suns between the Bulls and Cavs. So teams are out there on the phones, and I would not be shocked if the Suns are also trying to swindle some deals as well.
Right. So if you've noticed, my voice is like this, and it's not well. It's because of a few factors, really. First of all, I just got out of bed, and then second is that I've been nursing a cold and fever the last couple of days. So I apologize. Please bear with me, Sun's Planet, and I'm hoping Jake will soon arrive. In hopes to save me, basically, because I wasn't prepared to do the hosting today. So. And good morning to Michael P. I'm sure it's so hot there today in Phoenix. But in the Philippines, it's so hot that I'm sure I'd survive a 118 and 120. So I'm pretty used to that weather. But let's uh, let's basically start our show and KD trade. Obviously, the biggest one of them all that happened last week that netted the Suns Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, my favorite acquisition in this entire deal, and the 10th pick, which eventually turned Maluach, right? And
Yep.
then 5 second round picks used for a Brian Gregory master full performance in the draft. So, uh, Bruce, initial thoughts on the KD trade?
So I think a lot of people were really frustrated with this Kevin Durant trade because of the value that they got back and maybe some of the that's awesome from John. But also some of the positions that the Suns got in the trade, right? I think the main piece that the Suns got back, obviously, is Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks, obviously a pretty solid defender, but a lot of people had some problems with Jalen Green here because the moment that we saw that come through, we kind of realized Devin Booker would be playing some point guard again, and not a lot of people want Devin Booker to be playing that point guard. But I do think that Jalen Green next to Devin Booker is a little bit different than Bradley Beal next to Devin Booker, as Jalen Green's going to be a little bit more athletic. I think he's going to be cutting more to the basket. And I think that's going to open a lot more of passing lanes for the team to create, which will make Devin Booker may have some easier time to run the point guard position and make some flashier passes. So I think that's going to be very interesting for the Phoenix Suns. And then I think compared to the other deals out there, we did kind of hear that Miami was offering some scraps, some pennies on the dollar, basically, for Kevin Durant. I'm glad that even if you took a guy in Jalen Green who might not be a better fit, at least we're not just taking whatever just is fitting our team just to fit our team, right? We're taking at least some talent. So if Jalen Green, does fit in with this roster and it does work with him next to Devin Booker and Jordan Ott's system, then we can look at it as a blessing. But also, even if it does work, but not to the fullest extent, I do think that Jalen Green could potentially play himself up to being a tradable contract, right? He's under contract for 3 more years, and he still is 23 years old. So even if he does look good, but doesn't look the best fit with Devin Booker, and an offer does come out on the table where they do move him for another star down the line, I think that's much more attractable for the Phoenix Suns front office than some lazy second round picks from Miami and some weird late first with Jaime Jaquez and Nikola Jovic just because they play the wing position.
Right. And actually, I'm just happy that the fit side that a lot of people have talked about. Um, uh, Defensively, the fit isn't. I mean, it's off, right,
Yeah.
on backcourt. But I'm just happy that Jalen Green, a Filipino American, is finally. We finally have a Filipino in the Suns jersey, so that's what I'm happy about. That's a big deal for our community. So yay! And then, of course, the Dylan Brooks, probably the best, or not the best, but my favorite acquisition here. Of course, you hate him, if he's playing against your team, but when you have him, oh gosh, effort's not going to be questioned anymore. Every time this guy plays, and then the 5 second round picks, as we mentioned, used in a draft beautifully by Brian Gregory here. Your thoughts,
Yeah.
Jake?
Yeah, I really like that. You also mentioned Dylan Brooks, and you highlight his key defensive aspects, right? Like he's very aggressive. He's going to kind of fit into this new culture that Jordan mentioned at that press conference. I know you watched it after the fact, and I think a lot of the things that he resembled for what he wants for this team and hustle, aggressiveness, guys that never quit, is what Dylan Brooks really represents. But also on the offensive side, when he played the Celtics this past season, I think he hit like a career high, like 9 threes in a game or something like that. And he had his best shooting season this year from 3-point range. Now, obviously, that can fluctuate with players, right? It might not be what he's coming into. But if that 3-point shot is even at least a little bit resemblant, playing alongside on the wing, alongside guys in Devin Booker and Jalen Green and whoever this team does have to pass out to him, then ultimately on the offensive end, he's also not a net negative, which I also really like as well for the Suns.
Right, I totally agree. And that effort is really going to be contagious amongst the team. So, that effort that we sorely missed last season.
Yeah, and if Devin Booker wants someone that's gonna, be another voice in the locker room, as he was last year when Mike Budenholzer told him to calm down. I think a guy like Dylan Brooks really resembles another guy that's gonna be very vocal, similar to Devin Booker, which could be something that he wanted as well. You know what I mean? Like we don't really know behind the scenes what was going
Yeah,
on, but if that's the case, I think this also shows to Devin Booker, like, hey, we're getting someone that's coming in with a fighting edge and someone that wants to win, something that you didn't have on your roster last year, and hopefully that makes him a little bit happier as well.
yeah, that for sure, for sure. The only thing that don't want them to do is the shenanigans that Dylan Brooks uh, did with the Memphis Grizzlies, like all the dancing, all that corny stuff.
You don't
That's what
want
I'm
him to
hoping.
come in like
No, 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 like that. Oh my God. But yeah, and then of course, the initial reaction was like, "Are we? Why are we getting so little value out of a Kevin Durant trade?" Well, it's all about perspective, is what I said. KD was on an expiring contract. He doesn't want to be here, and he has so much leverage, with all the list that he has and everything, basically. So you've got to put it into perspective. You know that the value is not the same when you got him, and you're probably not going to get that that same amount of players and same amount of picks that you sent out.
Yeah, I would agree as well. The leverage, like you said, Kev, was just not there for the Phoenix Suns. When you try to trade a guy last season and it doesn't go through, that just tells the whole league that he's basically available next offseason, right? So all these
Yeah,
teams knew that Kevin Durant was going to be available. So no team had to really, they had to compete against each other, right? To kind of see if Kevin Durant wanted to go there. But there was no really competition to offer like a massive haul to kind of swindle him away from this team to kind of persuade him. Because even dating back to before the season started, when they asked Kevin Durant about his extension, if he was going to sign, he basically was saying like, have to see more moves kind of come through before I can commit to that, right? So there was
Right.
already some uneasiness coming into the Suns. That's why they were so interested in Jimmy Butler, so interested to make that big move so they could try to keep this core together. But then when they realized they couldn't, that's when they pivoted to try to trade Durant, and then that even made things worse. So yeah, like you mentioned, it's just tough when you look at it because you think Kevin Durant, a 37-year-old player, even though he's that age, is still a 15-time All-Star, a guy that could have been an All-NBA second or third team player if he got the 65-game qualifier and if the Suns had a better record, right? He's still a top-end talent in the league. So when you look at the return, you're kind of just like, damn, that's all you got for KD. But when you factor the fact that the Suns really had no leverage, he was basically going to go to one of those three teams that he wanted to had as a preferred destination. I do think that the Suns got the best package that they could have gotten out there. Now, obviously, you would have liked maybe a Jabari Smith, or maybe a Tari Eason, maybe a Cam Whitmore, a Reed Shepherd, one more of those younger pieces and added in. But if you can't get that, ultimately, I don't think it's the worst because they were able to turn those other assets, like we mentioned, the 10th overall pick and those 5 second rounders into something that was really nice. And I think that was the part of the trade that they had to hit the home run on, and they definitely did.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about the leverage. Um, there was a deal that got leaked about, what Minnesota was offering,
Mm-hmm.
but he really didn't want to go there. That,
Yeah.
I think, was as closest to, the value that you have sent out. It was like Dante DiVincenzo. Um, was it Rudy Gobert as well in there?
Yep.
So yeah, but again, the Suns didn't have that much of a leverage
Mm-hmm.
when you have a guy that's under 1 year with 1 year left on his contract and a 15-time All-Star who
Yeah.
had a list. So there we go. Big shout out to Leo, the only Suns fan in Colombia that we know, and thanks for tuning in. So we're going to go ahead and transition to the draft. And Bruce, this is going to be um, your round in terms of talking about the picks that the Suns made. Are they the right moves? And I know the answer to that already, but please go ahead.
Yes. So I do think that the Suns made the great moves and the right moves here going into the draft. Coming in at pick 10, they obviously got a guy in common Maluach. And I'll be honest with you, Kev, a lot of people talked about him potentially going to the Suns at 10, but I always had it in the back of my mind that he wasn't going to make it to 10. I just knew he wasn't going to get there. I thought that with the Nets being at pick 8 or the Raptors being at pick 9 and both of them having some uncertainty at center with Nick Claxton and Jakob Poeltl, that they were going to strike and they were going to take the best center prospect that most people think is in the NBA draft. But luckily for us, that did not happen. They took Yegor Demon and Colin Murray-Boyles, and Kamal Maluach fell into the lap of the Phoenix Suns. So for the fact that he got to them at pick 10, I just think was already an A because I didn't see it happening. But the fact that not only he fits what the team needs in a center and something that they said that they were trying to get, but he was the best available talent as well is the perfect thing that you want to have if you're drafting. And I think for the Suns, that's what they did with Kamal Maluach. He's a little bit more of a developmental piece for this team. He's a little bit of a rawer talent. It's going to take him a couple years to kind of grow and I think get to his peak form for the Phoenix Suns. But he's a solid pick and roll guy alongside Devin Booker. He's really, really solid as a defensive interior guy. He can be a rim protector and shot blocker. He's going to play a lot of drop coverage, which the Suns really utilize on the defensive end. So that's something that's going to be very solid. And I just really like the direction that they're going with this and going a little bit younger. He played with South Sudan as well in the Olympics. And I did see that following him getting drafted, that Devin Booker saw him at the tournament and said, I can't wait to see you in the league next year or something like that when he did see him. And then now he's obviously teammates with Devin Booker. So that's going to be really, really cool for him. I'm sure he's very, very excited about that. And I really liked the 10th overall pick. Oh, Jake!
Jake is here. Finally, someone's saving me.
But then when we went to pick 31 and picks 41 is also where the Suns really, really did shine because they traded up. They got Rasheer Fleming, someone that they had, as Gambo said, on their top 20 big board, and he is well deserving of being that. When doing research for him, for the Celtics and for the Suns, for Digest Media, he was someone that when I talked about other peers, they thought he wasn't going to make it to 28 or 29, and they thought that either the Celtics or Suns would have to trade up to get him. So the fact that he fell into day 2 was an absolute blessing, similar to Maluach. And the Celtics also wanted him at pick 32, but then traded out because the Suns jumped them. So that just goes to show you how great of a value he is. And Brad Stevens, a great GM, what he values in these players. So Brian Gregory getting the best of that and getting a guy in Rasheer Fleming, 6'9", but he has a 7'5" wingspan, play the 4, can play the 5 for the Phoenix Suns. Really solid defender. His jump shot's got to obviously be solid too. He shot 40% in year 3, but his jump shot in his freshman and sophomore year wasn't that great. So we'll have to see if that still holds over going into the NBA. But he's not going to be needed to create his own shot and I guess, be that big time shot maker because they have Devin Booker, Jalen Green, and all these other players. So I think he's going to be a solid, another developmental piece for the Phoenix Suns here as a rotational piece off the bench, adding some length and size on the wing. And then Kobe Brea, a lot of people are calling him that mini Devin Booker, that Devin Booker light, and that's exactly what he is. He's a little bit older coming into the draft than Devin Booker was coming to the Phoenix Suns. But guy in Kobe Brea is one of the best shooters in college basketball this season. For Kentucky, in the game versus Illinois, was their leading scorer and hit some big-time shots for them to come back in that game, but not only come back, win that game by a solid 6 or 7 points. And I mentioned this to Kev before we went live. If anyone knows who Walter Clayton Jr. is from the Florida Gators, he got drafted by the Utah Jazz. He won the tournament, but was that big-time shot creator and shot maker for that Florida team. And Kobe Brea has a lot of that in him as well. And I do really think that he's a guy that for the Phoenix Suns, maybe not this year, but in the next couple of years, could be someone that they do trust with to taking that last kind of shot and kind of being that impact guy for them, leading that secondary unit as that scorer, which I really, really do like. So overall, hands down, I got to say the Phoenix Suns, in my opinion, absolutely hit a slam dunk here in the draft with all 3 selections. And like you mentioned, Brian Gregory using those second-round picks to move up, move back, kind of get all active in the draft was very, very fun to see. And I'm excited to see what they can do post-draft now, too.
Jake?
Well, did I already miss that we traded away Kevin Durant?
You did, but you can talk about it.
On Kevin Durant right now, yeah.
No, it's one of those classic internet issues where everything, like I ran a test speed and everything says absolutely fantastic. I can log into a million different things. I can stream on YouTube. I've got you on here, but for whatever reason, StreamYard and the desktop is hating me. So you're currently on my cell phone, which is less than ideal. The draft was absolutely phenomenal in terms of just getting the excitement back, the excitement of hope for this team. I'm a little nervous about Maluach. I hope I'm saying his name right, just because he is so raw. I mean, his post game is essentially non-existent, but we weren't really using anyone in the post really anyway. So I guess it won't be too much of a difference. He's actually more mobile than I thought he was from everything I've seen. And I've talked to some friends that are big Blue Devil fans, and they said, he's raw, but he was so effective defensively, and he's just got nothing but a very high ceiling. So they were very excited that the Suns grabbed him. And I think at that spot at the number 10, you weren't going to find too many more players with that kind of upside. Especially, I mean, he's 18 years old, so a long career ahead of him, and it's going to be exciting because for last couple of years it's just been, okay, can the big 3 do it, and what role players can we find? And now it's a little bit more like, okay, we have pieces that we can develop and get excited about while also maintaining competitive basketball. Real quick, the other 2 guys I don't know quite as much about as typical with second rounders, but everything I've researched on these guys says that they're going to have a place in this league. What's really interesting is the guy help me out with the, is it Brea? Is that how it's said? Yeah. And just a lights out 3-point shooter. And I'm amazed that how far he slipped. He's a 5-year senior. And apparently he does everything poorly except shoot 3-pointers. He shoots that at an elite clip, but he's 6'6". Like I feel like you're going to be, or no, is he 6'7"? Yeah, 6'7". Like there's going to be a way for him to become passable on some of these other things, especially when we're looking. I mean, everyone needs 3-point shooting, and he's got that. And I think if he can just maintain a okay positional, body of work, I guess, where he doesn't have to create too much on his own. He doesn't have to rebound a ton on his own. He just needs to try and be big and be disruptive a little bit on defense. I think he's going to have a spot. And then is it Fleming? I've heard nothing about good stuff. I thought it kind of reminded me of a new Mikal Bridges prototype. I don't know, though, if you guys saw the same.
Yeah.
And see, I couldn't even read it. It was gone so fast. So
Yeah, here you go. This is while you're off air.
oh, well,
He got his
he's
new
just mad
extension.
because Jeff Green just got a new contract for the Houston Rockets. So clearly, some people really value that veteran leadership that Jeff Green can bring.
What are your thoughts, Jake, on Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks?
Well, real quick, so the KD trade, I am one of those people that is so high on this trade. Would I have liked more? Yes. Everyone always wants more in a trade. I would have liked 5 more first-round draft picks. But for what we got, I am very happy with it. Dylan Brooks, 29 years old, a very disruptive defensive player. That's exactly what we need. We need a defensive wing, and we've got it. And although he has one of the most punchable faces, as we like to say in podcast land, he's now our punchable face. So he's on our team now, and that's okay. What's going to be interesting is, of course, Jalen Green and his development. This guy had so much hype coming into the league. He used to crush me in NBA 2K because they just apparently thought he was going to be a lights-out shooter, and he's actually not at all a lights-out shooter. But I'm excited. I mean, what is he, 23 years old? And then, 5 second-round picks and the number 10 pick, a 37-year-old player that is going to want to sign a contract extension. He can sign another one for, I believe, 3 years is the limit now at his age. And it'll probably be a max. I think he's going to be great for another couple of years. But I'm just glad that the Suns. I think Kevin Durant is an absolutely amazing player, and he will go down as a Hall of Famer. But his window is different than our window. He needs to win now, and we're not ready to win now because we just got too much work to do, and that comes right back around to the draft. I think we're doing it. It's really exciting. I don't know, if you guys are having the same vibes as I am, but when I saw that trade go down, and then I saw the draft picks come in, and we'll get to the third part here in a minute, I'm sure. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm excited to see how these pieces are going to fit. I know there's more coming because there's just we can't just roll out a team of shooting guards and centers. But I'm really excited to see this, much more so than I was excited as the only big change last season was, hey, new coach, he's going to unlock the big three's offensive skills. We're going to finally run over teams. We were trying to convince ourselves of this. Now I feel like we have tradable contracts, developmental players that have value elsewhere, and we can kind of move and grow with it and see kind of naturally how it comes to be, as opposed to trying to force our way into a competitive spot.
Right, I agree with you. And everything from the trade perspective and all the way to the draft perspective, you kind of see the vision, and that is to inject youth into this team around Devin Booker as well. And we might not, or the Suns might not win a lot of games as we hope, but I think we're gonna love every effort that they put in on the floor. That's something that's sorely missed last season, as I've mentioned earlier too. And as this was going down, the draft of Maluach, a trade happened. This is Mark Williams from the best Phoenix Suns trade partner in recent history, from Charlotte Hornets. Yeah. So it kind of, I'm ecstatic because if when he's healthy, he's like a monster down the paint. But when he's not, then it's just. But it's kind of. I'm wondering what the role is, or what's gonna happen to Oso. With Mark Williams' arrival with the Suns. What do you think, Jake?
I don't know where Jake went.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. It was cutting out again. Man, I'm having a great day with StreamYard today. I think they're really trying to force us into paying for their premium content again, guys. If we just come up with the $400, I'm sure we'll have a smooth time. But I'm not ready to quite do that yet. Just in one other quick thing, not just are we seeing kind of the reintroduction of youth into this team, but the emphasis on give a shit guys is it's very noticeable out of the gate. I mean, Dylan Brooks comes in with a huge chip on his shoulder because that's kind of what has brought him into the league, is his like competitive play. He fights really hard. And I think these other guys, when you lead the league in the country in 3-point shooting, and you get drafted in the late in the second round, you probably have a chip on your shoulder. I would like to think so. Fleming, the same kind of deal. Some people were saying that he's the best power forward in the draft, and he fell to the second round. Here we have Maluach, who they're like, hey, you've only played for 5 years. You're super raw. And of course, with Jalen Green, who came in and what was the dance that the Houston Rockets were doing last year? Oh, we love Jalen Green, but we do want to trade him, but we don't want to trade him. There's no way we would trade him for Devin Booker. Oh, we'll trade him immediately, actually, and we'll throw in more stuff on top of that. So I think there's going to be a lot of players in Phoenix that it might not. None of them are going to be anywhere near as good as Kevin Durant, but a lot of them are going to want to show that they belong on a team, in a rotation, in competitive play. And I'm so excited to see that, especially since the weird stuff that's been coming out from the likes of a DeMarcus Cousins, that the locker room was fighting and apparently even coming to blows. And Kevin Durant said, oh, that's not true. But I still remember when they were asking Grayson Allen, around the trade deadline last year, oh, is it true the locker room's real toxic? And no, I don't know about that. And Yusuf Nurkic saying, I have zero relationship with my head coach. I feel like we are getting past that moment, and we're getting people that are coming in and going to want to show the hustle for those 50-50 balls and just be a lot more competitive, as opposed to, hey, I'm a max contract player or I'm a minimum contract player. I should be getting paid a lot. Or a max contract guy, hey, I'm getting my money no matter what. We're getting people that want to prove something, and that's an exciting thing. So youth, but also effort players. I think, think about it. We were raving about Colin Gillespie and demanding that he become like a full-time starter when he was a two-way player. And we were just like, oh, Colin Gillespie, save this team. We shouldn't have to ask a two-way player to come in and save the team. And I think we're going to have a lot more options moving forward.
That's how desperate we were at the time. And how about you, Bruce?
Yeah, I think Jake really hit on all points. We're having aggressiveness. We're going to be a lot more fun next season. There's not going to be games where at halftime we know what's going to happen. Going into the third quarter, the Suns are going to completely roll over and not be able to fight back. Fourth quarters where we do make a little bit of a run with 8 minutes left, we're not going to be like, oh no, the game's absolutely over, just start leaving. I think we're seeing a new vision, like you mentioned, Kevin. I really like that for the Phoenix Suns going into it, with adding Mark Williams as well. I know there's a lot of questions about his injury history and all that stuff, and he's a restricted free agent, and not a lot of people were happy about trading those 2 first-round picks. But let me tell you that 29th overall pick was someone that they probably would have taken Rasheer Fleming with anyways, and they got him at pick 31. So even though they had to make other moves to do that, they still got the guy that they wanted whilst getting Mark Williams. But also that future first-round pick was the lesser of Utah, Minnesota, and Cleveland in 2029. And with Utah now having Ace Bailey, with Cleveland having Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, and with the Timberwolves having Anthony Edwards and potentially bringing back Julius Randle and now having Naz Reid locked up, it's clear to say that at least one of those teams will be a top 5 team, top 10 team in 2020-29. So I don't think that pick's going to be any valuable. I think once again it will be another pick between 20 and 30. And for the Suns in 2029, who hopefully will be competing at that point, they're not going to need a 29 overall pick. So I don't mind doing it. Mark Williams, like I mentioned, there's some uncertainties with him, right? There's obviously the injury concerns, but when he's playing, he can get 15, 20 rebounds a night. and that's something the Suns desperately need in the paint. Not only that, he's a great shot blocker, rim protector, interior paint beast, something that the Suns still desperately do need, even with Maluach, because like Jake brought up, he's a little bit raw of a prospect. I don't think he's going to immediately start for this Suns team. It's going to be Mark Williams that's going to be starting, with Maluach probably coming off the bench. But I do think that that brings some intrigue for the Suns down the line, because Mark Williams can get signed to a team-friendly contract, one that I think is very resemblant of a Mitchell Robinson-esque deal, which is around $15 to $18 million. I still think that allows him to be that starting center. But if Maluach were to pass him in a year or two and maybe on his rookie scale contract be the better center and get the starting job, that means Mark Williams can play backup. And I think that's better for the Suns, because at $15 to $18 million, that's not a pain to be paying a backup center. But not only just that, having Mark Williams come off the bench, I think would help him be able to stay healthy more, not get injured as much. And I think for the Suns, then that would make him even more of a bonus piece coming off the bench alongside Maluach. So not only do I think it's a move to say to Devin Booker, we're getting you a good starting center that can, if he stay healthy, can be really solid, and also getting you Maluach, who's also a nice young center. But I think for the future kind of signals to him that regardless in 2-3 years, one of these guys will be a key impact player, if not both. And that's going to be really, really scary for teams around the league, because you already saw what Jordan Ott looked like with Mobley and Allen. And if these guys can pan out to be, top tier defenders, maybe not to that level, but even at that effect, I still think that's dangerous for the league.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we had some reports coming out that Devin Booker told the front office that he wants a lob threat. So there you go. You have like this abundance of the centers, coming off a rotation of Yusuf Nurkic and Mason Plumlee. You have these, you know, young guys, very athletic around the rim. So you kind of touch on it, the center, the five rotation, right? So what happens now with Oso and probably Nick Richards as well, who's been like in the rumors?
So with Oso, I think it's a little bit more of a question of what do they see Oso being, because I think there's a lot of routes you can really go with him. If they want to keep a young, cheap contract on the roster that they can develop, then I don't really have a problem with him staying. I don't necessarily know if he can play the backup for this Suns team, but that's something that they can try and experiment with as well if they don't have a guy on Bol being brought back, because I feel like that was kind of a hole being blocked up for Oso as well to really develop. But if that's not the case, then maybe they do use him as an enticing piece attached to Bradley Beal, because now they don't have those seconds and those firsts to really trade off of that contract. So maybe a team out there on the market is viewing Oso Ighodaro as a valued young prospect for a team that can't have any playing time, and that's a little bit of a sweetener on the deal for the Phoenix Suns to get off of that. But ultimately, I could see him staying. I think it's truly like a 50-50 with Oso at this point. I just think it's kind of what do they want to do best. And similar with Nick Richards, I think he's more likely to be moved just because they have Mark Williams now and they have a guy in Maluach. But since Mark Williams does have that injury history, maybe if they do move off of a guy in Oso, they keep Nick Richards and use him as like a fringe backup just in case they do need that third center at some points. But at that point, I don't necessarily know if you need that. And I think other teams would value Nick Richards a little bit more. And maybe the Suns could try to get some second round picks, similar to how they traded for Nick Richards, and use that ammo for a Bradley Beal trade. But I would say that it's probably unlikely or very unlikely that they'll have four centers going into the season next year. So I do think that one of Richards or Oso will be gone. It's just going to be kind of what can they kind of, I guess, get, right? I feel like with Richards as well being a non-guaranteed deal, they'll do their best to trade him. And if they can't trade him, at least they can just waive him and get underneath it and save the money and then kind of analyze what they want to do with Oso.
Right, and as much as I hate to lose Oso, who's became a fan favorite there in Phoenix. I mean, I can't speak for you guys because I'm not there, but I think he's one of the crowd favorites, right? Uh, but yeah, he might be like an addition to a trade down the line for or with or for Bradley Beal, along with probably Grayson or Royce. So yes. So there is I want to talk to you about this Bruce, who would you prefer to include in a Bradley Beal trade? Would it be Grayson or Royce?
Ooh. Probably Grayson, but it's going to be difficult just because with the second apron and stuff like that. I would rather them get rid of Grayson over Royce because we just have so many shooting guards now with Jalen Green, and I don't know if Kobe Brea is going to be on the roster, right? There's still some uncertainty. Will he be a two-way guy? Will he be getting a guaranteed contract? I think it's kind of clear that Fleming and Maluach will, so we kind of have that. But the Suns might need to get rid of both because they have to clear some roster spots. They need to figure out how to get some of these roster spots out of here so they can not only take on less salary, but also so that they can potentially take in more contracts in a Beal trade. Because if they try to do a Beal trade, I do think that they're going to have to take back 2 or 3 contracts. And at this moment, they don't have the flexibility to do that. So maybe looking to trade Grayson or trade Royce for some second-round picks or Nick Richards for some second-round picks. They even have Cody Martin as well, who I completely forget I keep forgetting he could potentially be used in a trade. But I think his deadline is today or tomorrow. I don't know off the top of my head which one it is. I can check real quick. But with him...
We're going to have another Suns news in, maybe today or tomorrow then.
Yes. Regarding Cody Martin and if he's going to be staying or leaving here. Let me see.
You kind of reminded me. Vasily Micic is back with the Hornets.
Yes, he is.
Oh my goodness. Oh man. And by the way, King Nacho, special mention. Why don't we greet Bradley Beal happy birthday today? And he's only what, 30, 32, 33? What is he?
Yeah, but why don't the Suns give Bradley Beal a great birthday present and give him to a new team, right?
Why not Bradley Beal shower us with some, some of those $50 million? Oh gosh. No teams left for a Beal trade. Bulls were the last one, and they traded Lonzo today. Maybe they're trying to.
I disagree, King Nacho. I disagree. I know that a lot of people on Twitter kind of see the posts and they're like, "Oh, Beal the Bulls," right? There was never a confirmation of Beal to the Bulls. The only reason that people said Beal to the Bulls was because the Bulls had bad tradable contracts that they could get down out of. The Bulls were a team that were looking to rebuild, and that the Bulls have Billy Donovan, who is is Bradley Beal's old coach from Florida. That's the only reason why people really linked the Bulls to Bradley Beal. There was never confirmation from anything. The only thing that Gambo said was that there are 2 or 3 teams that potentially could be interested. Flex said the same thing, 2 or 3 teams. There's no sentiment on these teams. There was a report that the Jazz came out with, apparently, and it was like a random, aggregated like 24 NBA reports or whatever that just tweet out random stuff. And they said something about the Jazz with the Suns, and Gambo and Tony Jones, who's a Jazz reporter, both shut that down. So a lot of people are just tweeting out random stuff affiliated with Beal, but there's nothing concrete. So I wouldn't go off of that because I don't think even if the Bulls were an option, there still could be an option. There's still possible ways to get a deal done involving Bradley Beal with the Chicago Bulls if that still presents itself as a case. So I wouldn't rule anything out for Bradley Beal at this moment with the Phoenix Suns and a potential trade or for a potential waiver sign, because from all the reports that we have heard is that they do not want to bring him back. So I do not see him being back.
Right. Well, I mean,
but didn't you hear the news from D Hottest?
Yeah,
apparently right now Suns are targeting Wizards Marcus Smart, possibly a reunion back in the district. That's from D Hottest. He's not the coldest, but he's right slightly more often. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, I'll trust D Hottest.
Well, what I quickly realized in Twitter spheres, if you put an @ source, then people automatically think that source must be great. And D Hottest is me, so it probably does mean the same thing. Side note, I finally got this thing working, so all it took was me to completely move equipment to the other side of the room. So you're still at the controls, Kev. I appreciate you holding it down for me, but hopefully Everything seems stable finally on my end. So hopefully I won't be dipping in and out. Kind of like Bradley Beal's health.
Your audio I don't know if it's just me, but your audio sounds
Yeah, it's a little.
yeah.
Do I tickle your ears if I talk too close to the mic?
I think so.
Okay, so pull it back like you hear.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
there.
Yeah.
Like I'm shouting into the void. Okay, that's better.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So go ahead, take over.
No. You guys are on a roll. Plus, we got to be done in 19 minutes anyway. So.
No, I mean I'm struggling with a cold, so
All right.
my,
So
my nose is like dripping. So
Oh.
we talked about.
Well, you guys already talked about Mark Williams, right?
Yep. Yeah, we
Okay.
talked about Mark Williams. We talked about the draft. We talked about the Kevin Durant trade. So, Kev, if you want to get into the last 20 minutes or 18 minutes, kind of going into the other things we've planned talking about, looking into free agency or potentially other trades or something like that. That's something we can.
Well, are you guys wrestling fans at all?
Not really. No.
No. Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys remember. There was a guy named Billy Gunn, and he was known as the Ass Man. And I got a new name for Mark Williams, the Glass Man, because he's kind of a glass cannon. He is absolutely phenomenal, but he might actually be less available than Bradley Beal, which gets me excited because I see King Nachos in the chat. And if we do offload Bradley Beal, which I think there's going to be a market out there, seeing some of these other players get moved around, and for like some of the stuff that the Celtics did, Bruce, like, you got to quit robbing people, first off. And so I think we can certainly rob somebody of our own with a Bradley Beal type contract. And then we can get Mark Williams, and King Nacho can say, get rid of this man. He's never available. Although he might have a harder time because that contract is far more forgiving than Bradley Beal has.
Exactly. And I feel like the one part that people will look like at if the Mark Williams doesn't work out, if he does leave, is like, oh, well, they traded 2 first-round picks. But when those 2 first-round picks don't turn out to be very much, or if they do turn out to be much just role players or anything like that, then I feel like it won't be as deflating if Mark Williams doesn't pan out. But there's still the option of him panning out, which is also the very key as well. And yeah, like you mentioned, Jake, I don't think that Bradley Beal will be here. There's no way he can't. Like, how can you look at this roster with Grayson Allen, Bradley Beal, Jalen Green, Devin Booker, most likely Colin Gillespie coming back, and potentially Kobe Brea on it, and say that there's a position for him to play or a role for him to play? He wasn't happy coming off the bench last season, and he, like Flex has said, he wants to play. He's a NBA player. He wants to be out there, right? He doesn't care. Obviously, he wants to have the $50 million paycheck and be finishing out that contract. Who wouldn't? But if it results in either coming off the bench or pulling a Jay Crowder situation similar in Phoenix, or taking a pay cut, and even though the Suns are going to be strapped to a $25 million sign-in waive for 5 seasons, it gets Bradley Beal to get a $15-20 million contract somewhere else. I think both sides would agree to that. I don't see an opportunity where the Suns really sit here and go, yeah, we're not going to sign and waive him or not going to move off him unless they're running Jalen Green at the 3 and Dylan Brooks at the 4, which is then like, what I don't know what we're doing at that point. So yeah, that's where.
Well, and I was even reading. There was a great new article from our friends over at Bright Side of the Sun. Actually, from I think it's the newest one up by Bryn Tannehill, who I just have to assume, in my own way, is Ryan Tannehill's wife, but she just happens to be a diehard Phoenix Suns fan. Totally could be wrong on that, but she had a great article that I was checking out this morning, grading every player the Suns acquired this week. Very interesting stuff. She is not nearly as excited as I was with this last week. I mean, she does like who he drafted. She's pretty high on them with the and she's pretty happy with them. But she did mention that Maluach. Okay, it could be anything from a Dikembe Mutombo, would love to see it, to a Hashim Thabit. If you remember him, he was the number 2 overall pick. I think he's somewhere. He might be in the Philippines. Kev, is he in the Philippines still, or is he?
I think he played briefly for a local team. Yeah.
Yeah, he's that good that he was getting chased out of the Filipino league to go somewhere else. Last we saw, but what was also interesting was some of the takes on, for example, Mark Williams. She's not nearly as high, and of course, it's his availability. But kind of exactly what you were talking about, Bruce, was that Dylan Brooks cannot be playing the 4 for you, and Jalen Green, she gave an F. Grade 2, which is interesting to me because I think a lot of Suns fans, even if they are on the side of Kevin Durant, we should have gotten more for Kevin. I think a lot of people are excited about the potential development of Jalen Green. But yeah, right now it's just interesting. You can't roll out a Jalen Green and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. And I'm still not 100% sure. I know they said they wanted to see Jalen Green, out there with Booker. Are you guys thinking that that's just kind of like, just something they want to say right now, or if they saw an opportunity to move Jalen Green, or I forget, are we under we can't move him right away type time period?
So from what my understanding was, and from the reports that I saw from Michael Scotto from Hoopsite was when they were engaging in the Houston Rockets trades before they took Jalen Green, was that they were surveying the market to see if they could flip him to a third team. Then Gambo came out and said when they acquired him that they were going to keep him. So my understanding from that is that they probably tried to flip him. They probably couldn't. And for the reasons of the teams that would be interested, the Jazz were probably targeting Ace Bailey ahead of the draft, and they didn't want to lock themselves into a dominant guy in Jalen Green if they could get Ace Bailey. The Nets, who have Cam Thomas, who's on a sign and trade and plays very similar to him. And then I think the Hawks and the Raptors. But the Raptors have RJ Barrett's contract. How are they going to get out of that? They're not sending that to the Suns. And obviously the Hawks have Trae Young, but how are they going to get out of that? That's not going to the Suns. So it's just very complex to do a deal involving Jalen Green. So I feel like the Suns took Jalen Green back because they were just like, okay, there's going to be really no solution out of this now. We'll just run with it. And since Jordan Ott has had some success with 2 guard lineups with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, I think they can convince themselves to doing that. You weren't here earlier in the podcast, Jake, but I was mentioning how Jalen Green, I think, is a better fit. It's not a Bradley Beal player, even though he's inconsistent from mid-range and not the best defender. He's athletic. He's at least going to be driving to the rack, high flyer, someone that's going to be going into those cutting lanes and having Devin Booker at least having someone going downhill to pass the ball to just at least go for layups and make it a little bit easier and maybe even make Devin Booker look like a better passer because he's not having guys like Beal, Tyus, and Durant just standing there like this waiting for him to pass the ball on the corner, right? He's got someone at least cutting and moving off the ball and going to the basket, which will at least be interesting for the Phoenix Suns. But I can obviously agree that it's not the best fit. But like I was saying to Kev as well, is he's still 23. And even if it doesn't work with him in Booker and he still looks good, there's always the possibility at the trade deadline or in the next offseason that his value is boosted up. And if there's another star player out there on the field, then the Suns can go out and acquire that player. Maybe like a Lauri Markkanen type-esque guy out there that's not Lauri Markkanen, because I don't think he'd really fit well within this team now with how they're at least try. Or I don't think Jalen Green would really fit in well with the Jazz, but like a guy like Lauri Markkanen's type where they can kind of bring in just like a middle of the pack star to help build in this core with Booker, and then the other young guys kind of coming up.
Mm-hmm. And I know you talked a little bit. And that trade that went down this morning or late last night with the Cavaliers had me really intrigued because we've heard it talked about that the Cavs, they're just too small in the backcourt. When Donovan Mitchell is your big offensive threat in the backcourt, and then Darius Garland is as well. Mitchell's a small combo guard, and so they're bringing in Lonzo. And I don't think that they would be done. And I think for the right price, they would send Darius Garland out. Now, you can't just send Beal to Cleveland. The money doesn't work. It's too much to try and bring Darius Garland back. But if we did get under the second apron, it might be possible to send a Jalen Green to Cleveland. I don't know what it, obviously it might then come right back to, okay, now the Suns have a backcourt problem with Garland and Book, but Book's obviously bigger than Mitchell though, too. And I think you'd be able to hold on to it. And I think that would be really good for Book to have another, not a super, well, Tyus Jones was pretty small, but like a very good point guard that's not 40 years old like Chris Paul was. So I would be open to that. But then, yeah, I think a Lauri Markkanen would be really interesting at the 4 as well. The thing is, in comparison to the last 2 years, and I mentioned this earlier, I feel like there's so much more possibilities. And I think, Michael in the chat was mentioning it too. Just we've got a lot of risk of failure, but we have some risk of actually or some great potential now. And before the last couple of years, it's like, okay, well, maybe Grayson Allen can add 10 pounds of muscle, and then we'll be this different team. And it was going to be such little changes because there just wasn't anything that we could do to make it work. And now I feel like it's exciting to see Brian Gregory. Who the heck is that? Jordan Ott. Oh man, it's all Michigan. And all of a sudden in 1 week, it's like, you know what? We have several directions we can go. Some are going to work, some won't. But I'd rather have, more potential than not. And so I'm excited to see it. But yeah, no, we're definitely not done. You can't have Royce, Grayson, Jalen, Beal, Booker. It's just not going to work. So I'm going to be very curious who we can go after. And of course, getting under that second apron is going to be, big. And I think there's going to be, we got rid of 2 very late first round picks to get a Mark Williams, who, if he was healthy, he's an all-star center type role if he's able to stay healthy. But especially on his current contract, that's a risk worth taking. Not like Bradley Beal, but yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to compartmentalize that. You guys were going so great for like 40 minutes that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna circle back and touch on all this stuff. But I'm very high on this Suns team all of a sudden. Like I think that in that Brightside article, like, don't be surprised if we win like less than 20 games next year. And I don't know about you. Are you guys worried that it's going to be a very rough year? Or do you think, or are you guys in my camp, which is, I think we're competitive and we could get be a low seed, 7th or 8th right now? I mean, just forecasting, obviously, because again, this roster is not going to be what it is on opening night.
Yeah, I'm in the camp of definitely not 20 wins, but I think that the highest expectation for the Phoenix Suns is the 7th or 8th seed. I'm kind of more that they're going to be probably a play-in team, probably a 9 or 10 play-in team here, and I think that will be very exciting for us because we're stripped of the extra games this season, right? And even if they win or if they lose that game, I think they could maybe win that 9-10 game, potentially make it as that 8th seed or lose, you know what I mean? But at least we'll have fighting spirit. I think that's kind of what everyone's been kind of impeaching here as well. Like you said, Jake, is just at least the games will be competitive. At least the team will have heart. At least they'll have hustle. At least it won't be, guys sagging off and feeling like they don't care. Yeah. You're staying up late night watching these games, and you just can tell with the body language and the transition defense that they are just not. They don't want to be out on the court. They don't want to be playing for Coach Bud. That's going to be something different with them playing underneath Jordan Ott. And not only just that, but getting all these new faces in too, right? There's so many new people coming in, not only just the rookies, but hopefully in trades with Grayson or Royce, getting other guys like Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green to lighten that locker room up, to bring some new light with Devin Booker for him. Obviously, there's going to be some chemistry issues to start off. They're going to have to get used to each other playing alongside one another, but I do think that it will at least be a more interesting and entertaining team for us fans going into the season. And even at mid-season, you know what I mean? Who knows? They might have a game in January where they're down 15 points and they come back and win, and you're just like, oh my God, I am bought in to Kobe Brea for hitting that big time shot. And that's
5 threes in a row. How does he do it? The next Aaron Nesmith.
I remember Landry Shamet.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this real quick, because I was just imagining it earlier too, was if somehow like a Beal or maybe even a Jalen Green or somebody was sent to Golden State for Draymond Green, and then we had Draymond and Dillon Brooks. Now, obviously, and Mark Williams, we won't be able to hit almost any three-pointers at that point, but we're also going to knock everyone on their ass if they try and come near the basket. I would be there for it. Just let Book go crazy for mid range. I'd be there for it. We'd be like a '90s style basketball team.
You're gonna have Book and his bodyguards just knocking people down like bowling pins.
Could you imagine? Just they'd be like trying to out technical each other.
Just trade for Steven Adams at this point too, and bring him over.
Might as well, yeah. Just somebody just to lay it. Yeah, that's actually when I was reading the take on Maluach from Brian Gregory and his presser. They said, "Oh, he's really great. He knows how to put a body on somebody." And I read that wrong as I was rolling through it because the way I read it was he knows how to put bodies on the floor. And I was like, "Oh my God, is this guy just gonna just block shots, but also just like smoke them too and knock them out? Are we gonna be like bad boys of the desert?" I would be here for it again, kind of as we've talked about. The want to try attitude, the competitive spirit. Think about that, like the glory days of yesteryear. I've got the 2021 Western Conference champion banner in front of me here. I'm thinking DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Cam Payne, Cam Johnson. They were having fun. Like the fans fed off the energy that they were bringing, even if we didn't win every night, even if we were frustrated that Ayton wasn't reaching his potential or that Mikal hadn't quite developed yet. It was like, oh my gosh, like I vibe with this group. Like this is a fun group. Whereas like the last year especially was just like, man, if we went down 20, it was wild to think, well, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant are not going to be able to get us back into this game. And that was a weird thing to say. But like back then, it was either we are going to blow you out, or if you're up 20, don't worry, we might actually come back and steal this game from you. And that's exciting. And I feel like we're moving back towards that direction, even if we're not quite there yet. So I don't know. I'm excited. This is the offseason. You always get excited again when your team starts doing this. I'm sure Bruce, who's also a Celtics fan, is also sitting there and being like, Kristaps Porzingis sucked anyway. Drew Holiday's a shell of himself. Anthony Simmons, right? Simons. Thank you. He just needs to be unlocked, and we're going to do it in Boston. I'm sure you're thinking of that. Georges Niang.
Yeah, we got Georges Niang.
Iowa State Cyclone. Yeah. You're going to convince yourself. That's the exciting thing about the offseason. But I feel much better already about this team moving forward. I want to go buy a jersey. Like that's where I'm at. I don't know if you guys if I'm delivering the excitement enough for you guys, but I hope you feel it as well. Kev, what do you think? I kind of ran past you there. Do you think are we a 20-win at best team, or do you think we could actually be that like gutsy team punching in to the playoffs?
Well, like I said earlier, it's they might win, or they might not win as many games as we would hope, but at least we'll see effort with this type of roster that's shaping up. And it's kind of hard to judge because this roster isn't final yet. We still have the free agency coming up next week, but I'm gonna be going with a camp of playing spot at least.
Well, I know we have to keep these things under an hour now because StreamYard is awful, not just because they didn't want to play nice today, but that's just how we can do this. So I know we've got to roll out. You can follow me at Fallen Founder, and let's keep the good times rolling. Let's turn to Bruce. Where can they find you besides everywhere?
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at Bruce Velez, Digest Media for Suns and Celtics Digest, and then over on Bright Side as well, writing for them. And yeah, that's basically what I've been doing so far.
You can find my writing on Bright Side as well if you like soup.
Yep.
And close us out, Kev. Take us home.
And you can find me at I'm Kevin PS. I don't tweet much, but I'm gonna be tweeting when the Bradley Beal trade comes down. So hopefully that's within the next few days. And thank you guys for tuning with us. And we hope to see you next week. We're gonna have a stream next week because it's almost free agency. All right, have a good time, you guys. Oh gosh, I'm not used to doing this. Where's it?
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay with us as the Suns get set to shine here on their home court.
Here's Perry. Cigar Hurd. Here's the jump shot. Good! It's good!
Al McCoy with you courtside. Pumped up a three.
Shazam! He ties it. Hey, D.A. Al and Tim up here.
Oh,
buddy.
happy birthday!
Right. Yeah.
I know it's the moment. Happy birthday, baby! Here's Cameron Payne out on top. Durant, three-pointer straight away. I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone in this arena this afternoon, to all of those that are watching and listening on radio and TV. Thank you for allowing me to tell the story of the Suns for 51 great years. That pretty much wraps things up here. And for one last time, this is Al McCoy saying thanks for being there. Thanks for being with us tonight. And from the Footprint Center here in downtown Phoenix, we'll just say so long for now.